phone call after phone call, and from one message to the next, with many people having sympathy for my situation, none of them were willing to help. The reality hit me that I had no place to go. That night, I walked for many hours until finding a house that was under construction, and I hid inside it for the night. I cut open a bag of attic and wall insulation, a very itchy pink substance, crawled inside of it to stay warm for the night. I didn't sleep though. Just laid there in my thoughts. Survival mode kicked in from that day forward, and for many months ahead, I had nothing but a cell phone in my pocket with no service, and the clothes I was wearing, and absolutely no money. The feeling of immense hunger had struck me by day 2. And unfortunately, not knowing of any available services at the time, I started stealing my meals from gas stations and clothes and other supplies from Walmart in order to survive. But my actions didn't come unpunished. I found myself in and out of jail and on probation for theft and still homeless. After a year of being homeless, I had met a handful of others in the same situation as me, and they had showed me the way of surviving on the streets without committing crime. I started going to the Salvation Army with them every day to eat a hot meal instead of stealing food from the store. We set up tents in places we felt somewhat safe and helped one another out in any way that we could. But even after a full year of being homeless, it was still hard to think of a way out. Every day consisted of constant survival. Constantly asking myself, where am I going to sleep tonight? How can I stay safe? Survival became more than a full-time job. There was no time to relax. It became an around-the-clock thing. That's all there was. It was a feeling of limbo. And what I mean by that is it felt like there was no way up, but yet no way to go any further down. The mental distress and constant struggle from day to day was unbearable. I was always exhausted. And being isolated from society did something to my mental that was very incomprehensible. My mind started to wander in such distress that it would start trying to convince itself that this was where I belonged. I started feeling like I didn't deserve any better than where I was. I couldn't even go into a store to use their Wi-Fi to be able to use my phone without being stared at and looked at funny or even being told to leave, just because they could see that I was homeless. They wanted me gone. And that feeling of being out of place or unworthy to even be in a public place because of how I looked, it really scarred me psychologically. It had gotten to the point where I had given up. I was too scared to even look up off the ground when I was in a public place because it hurt so bad to see the way that other people would look at me. They looked at me like I wasn't even human. Homelessness took a toll on me in ways I never thought imaginable. And I'm still struggling with the effects from those experiences to this day. And that feeling of limbo stayed constant for over another year's time. And then one day while camping under a bridge in Northwest Rochester, I met Dan. For the first time, a complete stranger, dressed nicely and clean cut, walked to where me and a couple others were camping under a bridge, carrying bags of food and clothes and supplies to hand out to those struggling and in need. It really took me aback and made me really curious, and he seemed very approachable. So I went up and talked to him for a while, and he told me who he was and what his cause was, and I couldn't stop thinking about how amazing it was. He was so personable. I think I told him my name once, maybe twice, and I don't think he ever forgot it since. He showed such empathy and compassion for complete strangers when it's seen for so long that I hadn't felt from anybody. There was no judgment from him. There wasn't any question on why any of us were in the situations we were all in. All he knew for sure is that we were struggling and he wanted to help. I saw Dan often after that. He would drive his street outreach vehicle to homeless camps on a regular basis to provide things we needed for homelessness to be easier to bear. And when Dan opened up the landing, it was a complete game changer for the homeless community. At least for me, I know that while in extreme homelessness and always feeling like I was in survival mode, there never seemed to be enough time to do anything else. When I first walked into the landing, I had a sense of comfort, a sense of acceptance. I was able to catch a hot meal, take a shower, feel safe, even if just for a short while. The landing gave me the opportunity to gather my thoughts, and that was huge. Probably the biggest part, because being in survival mode for so long, I never had the chance to do that. I could exit out of survival mode and I could start asking questions. Just start figuring out steps to take in order to find my way out of homelessness. And Alex, the director of social services at the landing, was able to use his resources and help me get connected with possible housing programs, and all the other staff there treated me like not just a welcome face, but like family. I always felt safe and welcomed. Places like the landing to help provide comfort and resources for the homeless, along with the Salvation Army and the Warming Center and the Dorothy Day House to help provide temporary shelter and a warm bed for those in emergent need, are all amazing programs that help ease the painful struggle of homelessness and are able to help guide those to break free. The biggest game changer for me personally was how I was treated by Dan and everyone else at the landing. To them, I wasn't just another name on a computer screen or just another wristband upon check-in. I was a human being. A person who was struggling, a person who they cared for. Everyone at the landing became not just friends, but a second family. They showed me love, something I hadn't felt in a very, very long time. Dan would pull me aside some days just to talk to me and see how I was doing. He truly cares. But not just for me, he cares for every person that walks through his doors that are in need. And he changed something in me. My mindset that had been stuck for 3 years from living on the streets, feeling unworthy of and undeserving of a better life, started to diminish. Being able to have a safe place to be during the day allowed me to start gathering my thoughts and try planning for my future of a better life. And my first step into doing so was to go to inpatient treatment for my drug addiction. And on September 12th of 2020, I went to Oak Ridge Treatment Center here in Rochester. And I've been sober ever since.
Thank you.
After treatment and after entering the sober house, I rekindled with my family that I had missed so very much. And they welcomed me back home with open arms. And in the past 18 months of sobriety, I've obtained a full-time job that I've been working for the past year. And Natasha and I were recently accepted into a housing program through the county that me and our amazing daughter, Tallulah, 7 weeks old. Sorry. Oh, we move into our new place at the end of the month, which is amazing. But, and there is a but. Her and I were a couple of the lucky ones, though. And what I mean by that is we have family. We have family that we were able to lean on for the last 18 months while we saved up money and we're finally able to get our own place. But the sad and unfortunate reality, though, is that not all those who are homeless have family, if not most don't. That's one of those harsh realities of the homeless situation in Rochester. Most of them, they don't. But our stories are different. Every person who experiences homelessness, their stories are different. Like the elderly woman in the wheelchair, who was the first person to ever share a meal with me when I was hungry, even though she too was struggling. She had no family. Her story was different. And the war veteran who shared his life struggles with me at the Salvation Army, which broke my heart to hear. He had no one left. His story is different. And the lady who suffered from mental illness that lost her mother, who now calls me family. Her story is different. And the teenage boy who left an abusive, broken home, who felt alone no matter where he went, became nothing less than a brother to me. The brother he said he never had. His story is different. They are all still battling homelessness to this day, trying to find their way out, dealing with the struggles and hardships that homelessness brings, but with the programs and organizations like the Salvation Army, the Dorothy Day House, the Warming Center, and of course, the Landing, they're able to bear the struggle with resources and people to help guide them and comfort them through the process. Because not only does everyone need, but everyone deserves a safe and soft place to land. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, brother. Man, we love you. You know that. I've told you that a gazillion times. I think you've got a career in speaking. Oh, I'm serious, dude. No. Your story is so important to tell because people don't get it. People don't understand. Oh, just go out and get a job. Pick yourself up, go out and get a job. They don't get it. But you can tell that story so well, so succinct, whatever. You know that word, succinctly. It's understandable, it's relatable, and people will get it. You need to think about that. And there's some other things I want you to think about. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, Tyler, thanks for sharing with us. Tallulah, thanks for bringing your daddy here. Natasha, thanks for coming into this guy's life and making him a daddy. You know, we are proud of all of you. And let us know if you need anything in the move, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like to do now is introduce Alex Hurlebos. He is our Director of Social Services. He is going to share with you all of those numbers that he has got in his head and what he does and what we're doing at the Landing. So, Alex.
Give me just a minute here. So I see a lot of familiar faces, which is nice. I thought I'd just introduce myself a little bit. I know Dan kind of opened it up. Again, I'm Alex Hurlebos, Director of Social Services for the Landing. And I've been involved with the organization pretty much since the beginning. I'm a disabled Marine Corps veteran. I started out doing social work and working with people experiencing homelessness at the Salvation Army. And I've really just, going into this field is not, maybe what I thought it would be coming in, and finding out pretty rapidly people's stories like Tyler has shared. You really just don't turn back from it. It's just something you pour yourself into. So I'm really grateful that I've found my path first at the Salvation Army and then on to the Landing, where I've been able to really pursue my passion and really been given the freedom to try to grow programs and find some delightful and wonderful staff and volunteers who I see a lot of here, who've really supported the work we do. And I'm going to try to walk you through a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of what we do. So again, thanks so much, Tyler, for opening it up and letting us know all about your story, because I think your story is relatable to a lot of individuals that we've met, and each person that's experiencing homelessness, their experience is entirely different from the next person. But I think the key thing that we try to remind people whenever we get the opportunity to talk to folks is that when you meet somebody who's experiencing homelessness, whether they're able at that time to take in what you're saying, to have a good conversation with you, you know, regardless of their state of their clothing or hygiene. That's a whole human being that you're looking at. They're in a certain state of struggle and a certain battle to climb out of homelessness that most of us can't comprehend. But what I always urge people right at the beginning of these kind of talks to do is to remember, when you meet somebody who's dealing with homelessness, that is an entirely whole human being, and to try to see them exactly that way. So just some statistical data that we do like to collect and talk about a little bit here. In the year 2021, we had an entire year of data to track for our day center specifically. And in that year, we saw 900 unique individuals. So in a 12-month calendar year, 900 different people came in needing a place to be with nowhere to go. You know, I'm going to keep referencing Tyler the whole time, but thinking about the story of people who don't have somewhere to just sit, and maybe they would make that next step. Maybe they would find homelessness, but not necessarily somewhere to stop and process their thoughts and gather things. So 900 different people, nearly 22,000 visits total. And, you know, you can look at these numbers and you can judge them as a lot or a little, but what I like to look at that is in a really human way. 22,000 times somebody was able to access a service or a place to be that they might not have had the opportunity to access otherwise, that they might not have had that little pause in their life to catch their breath and move forward and work forward. Some of the other stats that aren't posted up here yet, 2022 stats, just January and February so far, we've already seen 328 unique individuals. And the important thing about those stats is that those individuals are literally homeless individuals. They're not folks who are in a GRH housing, in a treatment facility, somewhere else. They're people, you know, like Tyler's talking about, the war veteran, you know, the individual outside the gas station who's literally got nowhere else to be. So 328 unique individuals that we have already seen in January and February. And we've already had just over 3,300 visits. So, you know, for those that question the necessity of a day center or a place to be, I hope that data is helpful in explaining just what's provided there. And I wanted to note also, you know, some compelling things that are really important in the work we do is to justify the service by showing how many people we can help get into housing who are ready to make that next step. How many people who are looking for a next step and aren't ready for housing, but want to get clean, want to get sober, just like, you know, Tyler explained, because sometimes that might be your first step towards housing and, you know, having a place to be is treatment. And so last year we saw almost 100 individuals that we were able to help get housing with the support and assistance of other agencies like Catholic Charities, like Salvation Army, like Olmsted County. And I don't think these statistics, some of them can be measured, you know, in isolation or in a vacuum, because all of our agencies, and we're really at a pretty great moment right now as far as services around homelessness, that we have so many providers eager to support and assist those struggling with homelessness. I think where we want to go with this is kind of a quote that we brought up a number of times when we speak to groups like this, is that trust and respect are difficult to come by. One housed individual meeting another housed individual, you know, on a scale of 0 to 100. Housed individuals might meet each other and start with maybe a 50 out of 100 or higher level of respect and trust. You know, if you came into this building and you have housing, I'm pretty confident that you didn't feel insecure, you didn't feel afraid, you didn't feel worried about how that would go. And when you're working with somebody who's literally homeless or who's experiencing homelessness, that trust and that respect starts somewhere around 0. And every single ounce of trust and respect that might grow there is earned. And the moment your consistency goes out the window, I mean, I'm going to keep doing it, going back to Tyler here, the moment that consistency stops, you go back to 0 pretty quickly. So somebody like Dan, who's out there crawling around under bridges, trying to track people down, who remembers your name when you come back that second time to meet with him, that's consistency. That builds trust, that builds rapport, that builds respect. And that's kind of what the landing has been based on. When we come to hire staff and find people, that's a key component in the people that we hire, is understanding that, you know, how important it's going to be consistent with the people we serve. They're going to count on you, and they're going to expect you, even if they can't be that same person they were the day before, they need you to be that same person. Because without that accountability, without that respect and trust, things fall apart pretty quickly. And I wanted to share as well, some of you might have picked up the pamphlets and the booklets out there, that the Landing as an organization does have a set of core values, humanity, respect, kindness, and grace. Those are things that we took very seriously as a board of directors to try to come up with, because they're guiding principles for all of the work that we do. And their purpose really is to attain that trust, respect, and consistency. So with humanity, it's understanding that all of us, housed and unhoused alike, have basic needs, and those basic needs are at some level of being met or not being met. Respect kind of comes into play when you talk about meeting somebody who's unhoused, understanding their humanity, that they have basic needs that need to be met, but respecting that maybe they're not where you want them to be, that pushing them, that setting expectations for them is not going to get them where they need to be any faster. What's more important maybe is understanding where they're at, understanding their motivations and their goals. And that's where kindness comes into play. And I'll probably continue to reference my staff as well. When individuals come into our day center, they're met with a kind face, they're met with kind body language, because that's something that's going to try to start to bring down those walls, try to start building that trust and that respect. You know, if you come in and meet with that person who's clearly not eager to see you, clearly upset, your boundaries and your walls go straight up. And when you're already talking about starting at 0 on the trust scale with somebody, that just doesn't work. And most importantly of all, I think, is grace. That was the core value that I think we hammered home the most strongly as a board, is grace. Because when you're serving a population of individuals who are struggling with homelessness, that person might be struggling with mental illness that's untreated. That person might be struggling with substance use disorder that's untreated. And that person that you really had a great conversation with yesterday, that you played cards with, that you really got to know on a personal level yesterday, might show up the next day intoxicated, struggling from their mental illness, high off whatever substance, or coming down off whatever substance, which can be harder. And we don't get, there is no option to judge that person. There's no option to hold it against them that they behave that way. When they come in the next day and they see that staff member's face, who they probably remember saying hateful things or being disrespectful to, I've seen it before where I've watched my staff just to see how something's going to go down. And I've watched that person that I knew was maybe removed by law enforcement or was asked to leave for the day. And I've seen them come in head down, ready to be berated, ready to be reminded, of what they did wrong. And I've seen my staff look into their eyes and say, hey, Joe, Bob, Jane, it's awesome to see you back. It's so wonderful that you're here. We're really glad to get back on track with you. And, what are you looking to do today? Do you need a shower? Do you need laundry? And it's not that it's rug swept, right? It's not that it's forgotten that something was done. It's that in that moment, the most important thing is for that person to know that they're still loved, that they're still valued, that they're still accepted, and that they're still welcome. We can worry about all that other stuff once they've sat and had a cup of coffee, warmed up, and kind of found their footing a little bit. But I think substance use and mental illness play such a role that you really have to acknowledge those things when we talk about the work that goes on. This next slide here is just kind of pointing out some of the essential services that we have at the Landing Day Center. And some of these services are found in other organizations, and we are big fans of overlap because it means that people are definitely getting the things they need. But everything that we do that does overlap is something that we do our best to try to fine tune the services we're providing so that we're not stepping on toes, that we are understanding what's prioritized at our location as opposed to other ones. But things like housing assistance, insurance navigation, medical care, legal kiosks, personal storage, basic needs items like nutrition, hydration, shelter, and hygiene. And those are all really important. But I want to talk about just specifically a service that isn't on that list that's offered, that exists at the Landing, and that is just space, right? Just space to exist without feeling in the way, without feeling like a burden, without having eyes on you that make you uncomfortable. Space to sit and let the stress and heaviness of the world slip off just for that moment, just for that period of time that you get to be somewhere, right? It's such a hard thing if you've woken up in your bed and you've taken a warm shower and you've hopped into your clean clothes and you've hopped into your preheated car that's got the seat warmers going, because I've been there, right? I know what that's like, but you've got to tap into the mindset of where somebody's coming from. And the reality in this city is that more often than not, where people are coming from is a mile walk from the warming center to the day center, from Dorothy Day to the day center, from the warming center to Salvation Army. That's a hard reality. But I think that space to be treated with basic humanity, to be seen when you walk into the building as a person and not necessarily as a person experiencing homelessness. Tyler is a person. Tyler was met by Dan and the staff as a person. His homelessness was secondary, and it wasn't seen as a illness or something that needed to be treated. It was, how do I get to engage this person, get to know them, hopefully build a rapport and a relationship so that I can better understand what his motivations are or her motivations are. What are they looking to do, and how can I help them get there? We have services around housing assistance that are collaborative. We have services around food, hygiene, shelter that are collaborative. And I think that that's such an important thing in this city, especially, is to continue to have collaborative services and ventures. One area we've really grown our services, and I'm not sure if somebody else is going to be talking about them, so I won't go too extensively, is the medical side of our services. Having a medical doctor, Dr. Casey up front here, having a medical doctor available 3 days a week who can meet with somebody and treat things that can get out of hand really quickly, but can also be helped very quickly. You know, there's a lot of things that happen when you're homeless, when you're living under a bridge, when you're living in the woods. Infections happen quickly and they can be treated just as quickly. And so having a medical doctor on site 3 days a week, having community paramedics from the Mayo Clinic multiple days a week, these are the things that make a huge difference. And for me, having Winona State nursing students come in, and these are the future of Mayo Clinic, right? These nursing students are coming in and we're getting to show them the struggle of homelessness. We're getting to show them ways they can impact and help their community, and hope that they're going to take that and run with it when they go on to OMC or Mayo or into different hospital systems outside of Rochester. So, you know, these are just a few of the services, but again, for me, the biggest one's not even on the list, and that's just having a space to be treated like a human being. And so this is kind of my last slide of the night, and just sort of ties together everything that we've talked about thus far. I just believe that our core values that we set out and created kind of create a foundation, and this movement that you see on this slide, from that very first time you meet somebody, that very first interaction at a check-in, all the way to understanding, meeting somebody who's now warmed up to you. Maybe they're at 30-40% in trust and respect, and you're sitting there across the desk from them, goal setting, talking about plans, talking about hopes for the future. Taking somebody who's talking about survival and day to day, and what am I going to do this evening, and talking about next week, talking about tomorrow, right? Talking about next month. I mean, that is huge. That's the work we do, and that's the success right there, is getting to see that, getting to experience that. And then moving to that last stage, understanding the steps towards stability. Not only have I gotten to a point where I am stable, where I can breathe and feel okay, where I can talk to this social worker or this doctor and trust that they're going to be safe with me, that my information is safe with them, that I don't have to worry. But now I'm looking at the very steps that will lead to my own stability, the very steps that will lead to my success. And that success is different for every single person that we meet. Just like Tyler talked about, every single person dealing with homelessness is entirely different. Their background, their experiences, where they want to go is entirely different. So for us, success can mean getting into treatment. Success can mean getting into a residential housing program that is just going to keep that person safe. And sometimes that success can even mean independent housing, a fiance, and a baby. And I just, you know, I can't help but just feel really, and this is me taking a little time for myself here, I can't help but feel just really excited and really hopeful by the turnout, all you individuals here. I see a number of service providers, a number of agencies, volunteers, wonderful people, the people online. So for me, as I hand off the mic, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and giving your time. And I hope that you do share the things that you heard and experienced here, because the more individuals we can get to care about this situation, the more help we can offer. And thanks so much.
All right, two really hard acts to follow. My name is Tiffany. I am the owner of Terra Loco here in Rochester. I'm also a board and association board member. This is an important issue to me because I think, like a lot of you, you probably may have been in a situation where you were one missed paycheck, one car repair away from being homeless. So I think it's an important thing for all of us to think about and to be aware of. And as a business owner too, there are some specific concerns that I think the community brings to us and things that we want to try to address at the landing, and the day center does address that we want to talk about a little bit today. But I think both Alex and Tyler have really articulated really well what the major concerns are and what we need to do as a community, and that extends to the business owners in Rochester as well too. So just kind of briefly, some of the concerns that might come up from business owners. Now, our business is on 16th Street Southwest, so we are close to the trail system, not downtown, so we don't get maybe quite as much of these concerns as somebody downtown might get. But, some of those concerns might be that people might avoid my business if there are people loitering outside of the business that might look a certain way. They might also have concerns, especially when the day center wasn't around, of people being in the Skyway and in the subways. With the day center being here and being available for people experiencing homelessness, that's really changed a lot of that for those businesses downtown. So we want to keep that going. And then, finally, something that like I've experienced myself as well at Terra Loco is people coming in who are currently experiencing homelessness, or maybe look like they're currently experiencing homelessness, and we make assumptions about them, and maybe they might use resources or maybe potentially have some property damage. And so these are concerns that I think are valid, of course, for business owners, and something that sometimes stops people, business owners, and other people in the community from taking that next step to actually do what's right. So let's talk a little bit about what a business owner, what the business community can do to approach these issues. What Alex and Tyler both talked about, and Dan talked about too, was establishing relationships. I mean, that is really the one of the key components, that establishing trust with somebody, especially if you are a business owner, you see somebody who is frequently by your business, that first time you see them, probably not going to be the last time you see them. So one of the things that you can do is to, use that kindness, approach in a non-threatening manner, introduce yourself, ask their name. That was something that Alex was just talking about as well too. Just find out more about them, find out why they're there, what maybe you can do to help. Speak with genuine interest, find out what's going on in their life, see what it is that you can do potentially, what their needs are. And there's a lot of resources in town that we can direct them to help them with their situation. Seek to meet their needs if possible. So something that we do, at Terra Loco is partner with the landing to provide shoes and donations of apparel and other things as well too, to help those experiencing homelessness. Something else important to note is that, there are going to be times when you may have to ask somebody to leave your property. And we want to make sure that we approach with kindness, we treat people with respect. But I think this is maybe one of the key things to kind of drive home to the business community, is that we need to make sure that we're approaching each one of those people as individuals and not making assumptions about, who they are, why they're in this situation, what they're there for, and even what their needs are. You should, as a business owner or somebody in the business community, approach somebody who's in your business the same way that you would any other patron, any other customer who's in your store. You should treat them with the same respect and kindness as you would anybody else, even if it looks like maybe they're homeless. Maybe it looks like they're there to use your Wi-Fi. Maybe it looks like they're there just to use the bathroom. those are all things that, again, as a business owner, if somebody were to come into my establishment and wasn't necessarily, or maybe just shopping around and just went to use the bathroom, I mean, I wouldn't, as a business owner, call somebody out and ask them to leave, just because of that particular, instance. So I would not do the same thing, or should not do the same thing, to somebody who looks to me like they're experiencing homelessness. Extending grace, we talked about this a lot already, is so important. And I think the other thing that I really want to drive home is that the business community can be a really strong voice for ending homelessness in our community, that we need to advocate for those experiencing homelessness to bring attention to the subject and to support organizations like The Landing in any way that we can, to show our community that it's an issue that's important to us as the business community, as the community as a whole, to show our city council that it's something that's important to us, that we find important, and that we want to make a difference, and we want to make those changes. Ending homelessness is going to be good for everybody. There are community and business costs to failing to address this issue. And I think it's really important that as a community, the business community, the community as a whole, continues to support The Landing and do whatever we can to approach this issue again with that kindness, respect, and extending grace to everybody that we meet. So.
Thank you, Tiffany. We're so appreciative of all that you do for our organization. For those that are in the business community or just private community members as well, we did put together a list of Rochester community resources to empower you to help those that you encounter. So they're in the back there in the entrance by the sign-in table where you came in. That go through, they need shelter, there's shelter. They need showers, there's shower resources. So please pick one up and use it to help those you find that are in need. So now we're going to go on to family and community concerns, and Joel.
Hi, I'm Joel. I'm a board member of The Landing. Want to take a few minutes to address some of the questions that we get frequently about dealing with the homeless in Rochester, just as individuals, concerns that you may have. Is it safe to approach the people that may see, with the sign at the intersection, at Shopko, or excuse me, at Target, that type of area, just, whether it's safe to do that. Whether they're actually homeless. I do get that question a lot. If the people that you see that are at the landing or that are out at the signs are actually homeless, or whether they're somehow scamming us. Also, the other question that we frequently get is, what happens if I give somebody money and they just go to spend it on alcohol or drugs or cigarettes or something that's unhealthy for them? Next slide, please. Oh, okay. Clicker. There you go. All right. Regarding the safety issue, yes, you do need to be careful about the people that are out there. I mean, that's the world that we live in, that there are people out there that are struggling with issues like mental illness and drug abuse that will affect their behavior. Also need to have the discussion with your children that are out in the area, that if they see that, it's good to reach out and help these people, but you also do need to be careful with that. And also the question about whether somebody is actually homeless out there. Some of the people, and Dan may be able to share more of the specifics later, there are some people that are on assistance that they're using the majority of their income for their housing. So they're actually using if you see them writing a sign at the intersection, they're trying to supplement their income and actually, make groceries for the rest of the year, or excuse me, rest of the month. Also, the question about, what happens if they use it for alcohol or something that I don't think is healthy for them. I mean, I think the important thing when you give to somebody, you're encouraging them. They may not, it may not have the ultimate, request that you're looking for. I mean, the results that you're looking for, but it does encourage them. It shows them that somebody cares about them. I mean, that's an important thing to remember. Even if somebody may not, may buy unhealthy food or whatever that you may be concerned about, you encourage them. You may give you the opportunity that you can learn their name, like we talked about earlier, that you can start to build that relationship with them. Something to be considered of as you're giving to people. Oh, high tech. All right. So a couple ideas that you can do to help the homeless. Always, it's good to have the constructive conversations with the people that you work with, people in the area. If you see people, I mean, you can actually join together, maybe come up with some ideas that we could implement to help them. Always be an example, help them treat them with respect, and have that conversation with them. And also, I mean, the Landing is a great organization. There's a lot of organizations in Rochester that you can do to volunteer at. So I would look for all the opportunities that you can do that. I mean, Dan will have a lot of information about all the different groups that are out there. And also, if you feel led, support the Landing, support other groups that are out in the community financially, and we'll do the best thing that we can for them. Thanks. Thank you.
Did you? No. Okay. So that ends the formal presentation period. We'll open it out now for questions and answers. So those of you that are on our panel, if you could come forward.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Lombardo, a board member, practicing psychiatrist in Rochester. And I just want to thank you for attending this evening here online. What a powerful story, Tyler, you shared. So thank you again. Thank you. So we're going to start with some introductions. Several of the people that are going to be here. This is going to be an interactive session. So we'd like questions from people online and people here too. And we have some experts here. So I think I'll start maybe just Dan briefly. I think people know you, but we'll go right down the line here. If people can introduce themselves and maybe your relationship for those that haven't spoken with the Landing.
Great. I'm Dan Fifield. As I said earlier, I'm one of the co-founders of the Landing Amen. Tiffany, your turn.
Yeah, you just heard from me. I'm Tiffany from Terra Loco, and I'm a board member.
I'm Dan Swanson with the Rochester Police Department. Been working with Dan since you started. Used to walk the Skyways with us. I'm one of the original members of the homeless outreach team.
I'm Tyler Mayer. I endured 3.5 years of homelessness in Rochester and found my way out of it. So,
Casey Caldwell. I'm a retired physician from Mayo Clinic and been at the Landing since September. And as Alex said, building trust. So getting to know the people. When I started out, I might see 1 or 2 folks a day, and quite a bit more than that now. So.
Alex Earlbus, again, Director of Social Services for the Landing, and still an ex officio board member as well.
Thank you. So maybe I'll start with a question. Then I'd really like people to be involved here. I'm going to start with Casey. So can you share with what some of the health issues that can develop from being homeless, in addition to what we've already talked about mental health issues and chemical dependency?
Well, we see folks with a lot of chronic medical conditions, diabetes, hypertension, and all that. And then we see some acute problems, some skin rashes, sprains, cuts, you name it.
Thank you.
So-
Yep. And Tyler, maybe, 3 years on the streets.
yeah,
You're young. I don't know how old you are, but
32.
32. So, in your late 20s, how was your health impacted by those 3 years on the street?
Well, in the 3.5 years, the physical health It was hard at times, especially during the winter. Many injuries, but the biggest portion of it and the biggest healing process was definitely the psychological. Bearing the physical pain was by far the easiest part.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience?
Do you have a mental health professional on staff or volunteer, someone who can come in? We have physical doctor, but I don't recall
Is that for Tyler or?
for
or
anybody who
anybody?
can answer
Okay,
that, you know,
okay.
to help people deal with that aspect of their health.
My question is are you volunteering?
I am not qualified,
Okay.
but I'm really good at solving other people's problems. So you know.
No, and that is one of the things, there are a couple of, we are really strong right now on the physical end of the medical sphere. We've got Dr. Caldwell, we've got the paramedics, we've got Dr. Luke, who started to come in on Thursday afternoons. Now, we've got the nursing students. So we've got the physical end of it. We're really growing this rapidly. We've got a lot of good things that are coming up that we're doing with Mayo. Mental health is probably one of the biggest health concerns that we have with the population that we work with, and getting that service provided for them is difficult. So if there is a mental health service provider that is out there that wants to volunteer their time, the new building, which if you didn't see out front, there's some renderings or a rendering of what we're potentially looking at. We'll have a space for you to come in and practice. So that answers that.
Alex, do you have?
I was just going to jump in that just to share that there've been discussions with the Mayo residency, kind of the psych section of Mayo residency, about trying to grow that as the landing grows. And just to try to note as well the struggle, kind of what Casey shared and alluded to, which is that when he started out as a provider, he's seeing 1 to 2 to 3 people, a time. And like one of our staff shouted out, now folks are standing there waiting for him. And with psychological services, difficult enough for people who are housed to get in, and difficult enough to keep an appointment and manage that time and that schedule. And so when we've got individuals experiencing homelessness, the way we've talked about psychological services is almost that they would need to be similar to Dr. Casey, where it's a planned weekly slot that's available, because as I'm sure, people who've experienced homelessness can attest to, planning out a 1 week or 2 week appointment is unlikely to be successful. So definitely a service that we really want to provide, though.
I don't have a question as much as a comment, because I'm a talker. I'm a talker, so yeah, I'm gonna stand up. But more importantly, I'm a member of this church that we're in right now. I am a social worker, I'm a volunteer at the Landing, and I'm a mother. And one of the things that I noticed that I would see on Facebook, online, or something like that, and people were concerned about their safety. What about my kids? What about me? I'm riding my bike and they seem threatening. And I just want to share that I think a lot of the folks that we work with are really, whether it be mental illness or it be physical problems, drug addiction, a lot of times when they are expressing themselves, they're not even shouting at you or trying to be hurtful to you or scary to you. They just need that space. I mean, we can go home. I can go home tonight and be in my bedroom or my basement and scream and yell and show my frustration about things. And some people just don't have the place to do that, or the people that will listen to them and talk to them. So that's what I would say, as far as if people are, concerned about if there's someone is displaying some behavior that seems kind of scary, and maybe they're looking in your direction. I guarantee it probably has nothing to do with you. So that's really important to remember. Thank you. And Dr. Lombardo, you are fantastic, by the way. I'm so glad you're emceeing this.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question from a audience member up here. Sorry. Oh, Yeah, here I am. She wanted me to ask for her. We said that there were 900 plus visitors last year. How many of them ended up with independent success? So if you can kind of talk maybe Alex about success.
Sure. And I'm guessing that question kind of comes from the discussion we had around success being different for each individual, that not everyone is seeking the 2-car garage and the white picket fence, that that's not where everybody is at. And I would say that, you know, as we've grown as an organization, we've kind of learned these lessons as well and started to really understand that the people we engage, what we want for them is oftentimes different than what they're ready for or what they're seeking. So I wouldn't be able to give you a hard statistic or a hard number, but I would tell you that every effort by our staff, by the social service and medical professionals that we have within our organization, we pour everything we have into helping people. So again, I wouldn't want to mislead anything with a statistic. I think it was something like 89 individuals housed, nearly 50 individuals into treatment out of 900 or so. And, I know specifically that we helped a number of individuals, 50 to 100 individuals, get into different GRH placements, which is kind of a different thing because that housing doesn't bring a complete stability. But I think the important part, or what I would want to share specifically, is just that we continue to grow our services as we continue to understand the need. And we've done that from the beginning. And that's kind of the point of this organization, is to continue to say yes when possible and when beneficial to the people we serve. And so hopefully, probably not an exact answer to your question, but hopefully gets there a little bit.
And I think, Alex, didn't you say already this year, we've helped place 29 already this year?
Could Officer Swanson do some comments on the law enforcement, pluses and minuses, how is the landing specifically and more generally dealing with homeless? How has it progressed over time from a law enforcement perspective?
It's been kind of a long road. A few years ago, we seemed to see as a community, and law enforcement got leaned on quite heavily, which was difficult, but another story. But we started seeing more homelessness that was kind of in your face. There's always been that problem, but it hasn't been so right in front of you that you couldn't avoid it, that it was just right there. So myself, 2 other officers, Doug Rumling, Jim Marsolik, and I were tasked with being part of the homeless outreach team. And we kind of got thrown into it. Not really sure how we were going to proceed, what we had for resources available. We kind of just stepped in blindly. And it wasn't very long. And I guess the one individual that kind of just stood out, and he's got housing now, has for quite some time. But he was one of our, I'll call them problem children, creating a nuisance, not a criminal per se, but definitely got himself noticed, scared a whole bunch of people, and we were constantly dealing with him. Dan came along. Initially, I think it was got him a pair of boots. He needed a pair of shoes. That's all he needed. Happiest guy in the world. He would come around, we'd see him for the next couple months, and he would always tell us about his new boots. And it took a little while, and all of a sudden he seemed to be doing a little bit better. And then all of a sudden he disappeared, and found out a short time later. And I know we had gone probably quite a while without talking. Usually I'd talk to Dan every week, 2 weeks, and things happened and we hadn't run across. And all of a sudden, hey, we got this guy housing. And so that was kind of the starting place. And that was all within that first probably 6 months. As we progressed, backtracking a little bit, We found out about Dan and the landing, and they were just getting on their feet, trying to figure out housing opportunities, how to deal with the homelessness within the skyways, within the public structures that we had downtown, problems that it was creating, how can we fix it? A lot of conversations with the city attorney. What legal parameters do we have to work within? That was a big part of it. You know, what can we do? What can't we do? We started out trying to give the information that we had, that we knew about. We started exploring resources, and I had a stack of cards that I kept in this pocket right here that we were giving out. At that point in time, things were a little bit different. We saw a lot of people that were just straight living in the parking ramps and the skyways, and that's just what they did. Trying to deal with that, we learned a lot. We learned back up. We were tasked with what can we do to help? Getting to know them, trying to figure out what we could do. We pointed out the resources that we had available at the time. They've since grown. It's been a great thing. And we tried to educate. It was I guess our best way to describe it. We're talking to people, figuring out what little they could, and we're the police. So vast majority of them aren't comfortable talking with us. After a while, we got to know a few of them. They'd say hi to me, say hi to my partners. Hey, how you doing? You know, and we'd have candid conversations with them. How long you been clean today? Or how long you been clean this week? We got to know them enough that we could easily talk, and they would hopefully, I guess, be quite honest. They'd give us an answer. And probably always wasn't right, but they would at least give us an answer, which initially was not the case. So we progressed, more opportunities came available. How the city looked at the using of a lot of those public spaces changed. And so then it was back to the education. This place isn't going to be available was the common theme that we were giving out for months. This was not something that we sprung on people. Hey guys, this is coming down the pike. This is what's going to happen. Here are some more resources. Again, we've already talked to you about this, and tried to be as open as we could. We were direct. Met with a fair amount of cooperation. I think we had talked to them long enough. We were familiar faces. We weren't yelling or screaming at them. We weren't taking them to jail, although that did happen on occasion. But that was typically for other reasons, other criminal activity that we have to do the job that we have to do. But that education came when that day, that final drop dead date, we really didn't get a whole lot of pushback. The night warming shelter had opened up. Dan was up and running at that point in time, I believe. My dates, it's been long enough, and there's so much that has been happened. The course of events and kind of is a little fuzzy. You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
And I wanted to talk, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was going to say that, but I thought it'd be nice. But we progressed, and right out of the gate, as soon as those rules changed within the city, Olmsted County, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, the Landing, all got a tremendous amount of people housing. Within a very short period of time, bodies were just disappearing, poof, 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 gone. Where they'd always be in one spot, we could always find him. I knew where I had their route and they always had a route. And I'm like, well, if he's not here, I know he's over here. Cause then we talked to him over here and then pretty soon he's over here and then he's over there. And we had him for the most part figured out. It didn't take us very long to find anybody. We knew all their hiding spots and learned a lot about the city. I didn't know. But a lot of people were helped. And it's a constant progress, constant effort to try to work with it. But Dan and I have had this conversation numerous times. We're kind of always passed off as the bad guy because we're kicking them out. We're dealing with criminal activity. We're the ones that are arresting them. And so it's the fault. A lot of times I know for a lot of officers seems like, well, we're the bad guy. And this is a law enforcement problem. And it's not, and it's a community problem. Well, one thing Dan and I have also talked about is this community is dealing with it far better than most. And I think I've always been supportive of Dan. I really like and have talked at length many times about the benefit of the landing and what they're doing. Does that help? That was kind of a long way around it.
Yep, I'm just gonna ask.
Go
you-
ahead.
Piggyback off of that, I think more maybe along the lines of, I don't need a mic, I'm loud enough. I guess just to piggyback off of that question, more along the lines of how has the landing, ever since it's been around, helped with the criminal and or crime activity in the downtown area? Has it helped? Has it made it worse? What does that look like?
Absolutely helped.
Thank you.
I'll be quite candid. The population that the landing is really trying to help is not without their problems. It is a group that suffers from a lot of different issues, a lot of mental illness, a lot of chemical abuse, you name it. And so with that comes a lot of criminal activity. What I like about the landing is that, for many things, but it's a place for those experiencing homelessness can land. It occupies their time. You talked about your time to think. It gives them that time to think if they're out just trying to survive. And that was a good way to put it. And I like that. Articulated better than I could have. But it gives them that place to land. It gives them that place to calm down, where instead of being, like Tyler put it, in survival mode, which a lot of times will bring criminal activity because they're trying to do the things that they think they need to do to survive, to meet their needs, whether it's a good need or not, it doesn't matter. It's a need that they feel. Whether it's, spurred by mental illness, whether it's spurred by chemical addiction, wherever the resource that there, or whatever the stimulation to get that, it happens. At the landing, they get a break. There's, talked about community, and I've seen it. I used to stop in. I haven't stopped for a while, but I'm a busy guy downtown. My partner and I, Alex, are very busy, but there's communication. You guys can sit and be quiet. You can communicate the people that the homeless individuals, and you talked about it, Tyler. You can sit and talk. If you're doing that, you're not in that survival mode as much. The criminal activity definitely decreased, to answer your question. The disorderly calls, that was a big one. There was a lot of individuals experiencing mental crisis, and you've got some little old lady walking from a hotel to go to her appointment at Mayo Clinic, and she's from North Dakota, and she's never seen anything like this before, and you have somebody sounding off and scare them to death. And we got a lot of calls like that. That's just one of many, but that individual then is at the landing. They're not downtown, they're not in the skyways. And so we don't get those calls. Everything has reduced. Is there still problems? Absolutely. But nothing is perfect. Everything comes at a cost. Everything, we don't live in a utopia as much as we'd like to. Nothing will always be exactly as we wish, but we manage it exceptionally well in this community.
So Dan, what I'm hearing though, if the landing, you've been at Silver Lake for over a year.
Mhm.
If the landing went away, there would definitely be a void without a day center.
That would be my prediction.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Jump in on here. So a couple of things real quick that I want to throw in here as far as our relationship with RPD is that we offer them, the patrol officers, we offer Dan and Alex and Jim who are here today. We offer Doug and all of the other guys, Charlie, all the other beat cops that are out there in the district, the opportunity to come in and just be present, to build those relationships with these individuals that give them that opportunity to become somebody other than just this damn cop that's going to jack me again. You know, it gives them the opportunity to become a human being to people that don't think they are, that think they're just that cop that's going to run me in. So, you know, it's the building relationship thing. You know, it's that building of those relationships that are helping to heal part of the issue with this population. I hope, and I may be wrong, and I may be real wrong, but I hope that we are part of that relationship building and making your work better. You know, with this group. I know that there's a lot of the a lot of the population that we don't see because they go up to Salvation Army, right? So we don't even get to interact with them. Major Lisa and her crew get to interact with those individuals. So we're just part of that solution. You know, Salvation Army has their day room area that's open, you know, during the week. So, you know, and thank you, by the way. You know, but it helps to defuse, if you will, some of those issues. You know, it gives RPD the opportunity to come in and just be there. You know, hey, we're here. How's everything going? You know, so I think that's a big part of that relationship building. Okay, I'm sorry. I know.
So we know that homelessness is going to be a continuing, ongoing concern in a community that we will always need to address because of drug addiction and mental wellness. And we're trying to incorporate someone who can work with those issues on the staff. What is the sustainability that you have found in the people that you have been able to house, like in Tyler's case and many other people? What have you seen as the sustainability over time? I know it's a new program, so maybe we don't know.
Well, I'm gonna make a quick comment. I'm gonna let Alex. Well, Alex has got a mic under. So one of the biggest problems that we run into is that you have to appreciate the trauma that's involved with homelessness. Tyler is a rare example, in my opinion. There are several other people that are here that have been in this situation. They're rare examples, but if you take somebody that's been living on the streets for 6 months or 3 months, depending on what their mental health state is, you live in such a state of discord, in filth, in whatever. If I take Tiffany and she's been on the street and she's been living in this environment where, you know, there's trash all around you, nothing's picked up, always like this, and I move her into an apartment and say, okay, here you go, Tiff, enjoy yourself. Chances are that's what she's going to live in. And we struggle with that continually. We have some success. We have great success sometimes, but it's not always the case. So, Alex, you jump in.
Yeah, so I think this is always a tough one because I think if you're going to look at success with a statistical understanding and you give it, say, a letter grade, right, 80, 90, 70, you're going to be underwhelmed. What you need to understand is when you reflect on the statistics, just specifically with substance use disorder, with treatment, the number of instances it takes the average individual to become clean for 5 straight years, that number of interactions at treatment is somewhere over 8. So somebody going in and out of treatment, that means that that individual needs somebody to continue to care and to continue to buy into their belief that they can get better, 8 different times. And so I think in this community, as our organization has grown, the partner services and one of the largest and most important ones financially and otherwise is Olmsted County has started to grow and to reshape its understanding of success. Where an individual might have burned all their bridges in the community before, there's an understanding that who that person was while they were burning their bridges is not who they are today. And I think that as the landing has grown these past 3-4 years, we've seen our community partners and stakeholders and the people with the money really start to understand that difference as well, that we don't want to be one of those communities where you go downtown and there's no public restroom because you just shut your doors to the problem. That we want to be a community that understands the problem, that can be ahead of the problem and can start to create actual solutions, not just what we perceive to be solutions. We've had really great meetings recently with individuals at Olmsted County talking about what housing is needed, what type of solutions are needed. And, I continue to talk about the partner agencies that we work with because it's that important. It's that important to have buy-in from all these different agencies, all these other touch points for individuals to find that success. And so, statistically, I don't want to underwhelm you with these stats, but the point is that as an organization, I think we've really pushed the actual narrative as opposed to the perceived narrative, which is that individuals need that care even after they've failed. Individuals need that soft place to land even after they've found themselves, to not succeed in an outcome that they really thought this was going to be the time, this is going to be my chance. And then they fall. And rather than fall, into a rocky pit, they have a soft place to land and they have people who are still there smiling, looking in their eyes, glad to see them back, glad to pick up the pieces and march forward again with them. So hopefully that was close to an answer.
Go ahead.
Up here. Can we, we'll get this one right here. Yep.
So I see in the panel, I see where you have, you're talking about physical security. You're talking about medical care. You're talking about psychological care, education. I haven't heard yet, and I know you do this, but I haven't heard yet about the spiritual care. What about their spiritual needs?
How do I want to answer this? For those of you that don't know our story, Holly and I are a family of faith. We believe that God is the driving force behind our organization. I walked away from a job that I loved because at 4 o'clock in the morning, I started to pray and God made it very clear that starting the landing was what we were going to do, and that we were going to take care of these individuals that were facing homelessness. Running joke is that, when we first had the vision in 2017, when are you going to start the landing? And then we told everybody, well, when we win the winning lottery or get the winning, when God gives us the winning lottery numbers. That wasn't the case. He took away half of our income, said, okay, good and faithful servants, now go forth and take care of these folks. And that's what we did. And my background, my Christian background started in 2009, 2010. Moving forward, the one thing that I knew is growing up as a youth that I didn't like about church is that they always beat me over the head with the gospel. And people will ask me all the time, how do we minister to this group? How do we spread the word of God and that aspect of our ministry? And my answer is really simple. We just love them. We share our love for each and every one of them, no matter how ornery and cantankerous they are that day. They'll come back in and we'll just love them. And that's what Jesus wants us to do. That's the word that we've gotten as a Christian family, as Holly and I have gotten. And this is what we pass along to our staff. And we have staff that aren't Christians. We have staff that are of other beliefs. And it doesn't matter. We just love them. We're not judge and jury. We're here to love them like our Jesus would love them.
If I could add just to that, sorry, I'm over here, that we are in a city-owned building, we're leasing a city-owned building. And so some of that comes with some restrictions about things that can be done and said inside those walls as well. When we are in our own space, we look forward to having educational experiences and classes and things that will be allowed differently than where we're at right now.
Ed, so I'm here. This is a true story. I was his first donation.
He was.
I was in, wait, let me tell this story. I was in FedEx and I know Mike over there that was there. And I heard a little bit of his story about what he was doing. And, you know, talk about spiritual. This is divine providence. I'm a devout Catholic. And I just sit there and I go, oh my God, this is amazing. If this guy is going to do that, I told him, I'm going to pay for your first cards. I'm going to pay for your first pamphlets. I gave $100. I said, I'm your first donation. I want to watch you what you do. And this has been amazing. This is the fruit of prayer. This is the fruit of God coming down. And I was there. I heard his story. I couldn't believe it. I was like, you're going to really do that? I said, I'm going to help you put your first money in. So I'm very happy that I'm here. God bless you.
And this is the first time I've seen Oscar in probably 2.5 years. Yeah, so.
Actually, I have a question from online that kind of is along the, how can more churches establish a partnership with the landing?
913-909-6093, info@thelandingamen.org. Our main focus has always been that this is not a city or a county problem. It is a community and it is a faith community problem, because that is what, as a faith community, we are tasked to do. Not saying that we don't want the city or the county's help, that we don't want to partner with them. That's not what we're saying. But as a faith community, as a community, these are our neighbors. These are our brothers, our sisters, our kids, our friends, brothers, sisters, kids. We all need to take care of one another. If we don't take care of one another, we will fail. If we fail, I don't want to be around. So, but to answer your question more succinctly, reach out to us. We love to come and talk to congregations. We love to come and tell our story and spread the word. And you know that I'm really bad about talking about it. So.
Yeah, we've got 3 different people that have asked, what are the gaps in the volunteers that you have, or the services that you think you need to introduce?
So gaps in volunteer services specifically. And I think this is another one when we talk about having our own space as opposed to a space that we're currently in, which we're grateful to have partnered with the city on this space and to have existed in it. But it's not been the most, it's not been the most suitable. It's not been
user-friendly.
The most user-friendly, sure. For volunteering, for a lot of the goals, when we sat down before we ever moved into the fire station, we had a lot of plans as a board and as a group, and sitting around the kitchen table talking about all the things we really wanted to see happen in this building. Well, you start filling that building with things, and you soon realize that we've run out of space. Those AA meetings, those NA meetings, those men's group, women's group meetings lost the room that we wanted for them. So I would say that right now we have a pretty dedicated core of volunteers and supporters and people like that. And we really, and what I love, as much as I love our regulars, I love the new faces too, because that means that this is being shared oftentimes by the regulars. And so the more new volunteers, the more new faces we see, the more people who care, and they bring different skill sets and they bring different backgrounds. We've got nurses, we've got doctors, social workers, we got every walk of life in our volunteer groups. And so as we move toward that new building, and I encourage everybody to take a look at the plans out there, as we move towards our new building, I see tremendous opportunity to grow volunteer roles and experiences, and really to capitalize on all of the skills that we have in this population of community members who care about this issue. There is so much, raw passion and care for this issue that we really want to tap into as an organization. And so, at this time, please take a look at the website, click on the volunteer button. It'll automatically send an email to me, which I'm always super stoked to see, because that means new people are hearing about us. And I will get back to you quickly so that we can give you a tour of the landing, see what we're doing, meet some of our friends that we help and who teach us things each day. And, always, I think an exciting thing is having staff come in and tell me all about this new volunteer they met, or having a volunteer come in and tell me something I don't know about my staff. It's just, it's kind of a beautiful thing. This beautiful symbiotic thing that we've got going on. And so we love volunteers. We rely on volunteers to make all of this happen. And I think what's exciting too is to see or hear from volunteers the relationship that they're developing with this client, or how they feel like they've turned a corner with this client. And I think that I've seen, and I know my social service staff have seen, volunteers play a critical role in unlocking certain things with guests, having those relationships built even by the volunteers who walk in with a guest and maybe say, hey, me and Robert or whoever have been talking, and he'd really like to look at inpatient treatment options. And, as much as we might dedicate ourselves to it, to have a volunteer who comes in and really, we're very open to what volunteers want to do. We don't, dictate what people do. Sometimes we've had volunteers who just want to play cards, just want to chat. And so to have that volunteer come in with a guest has happened more often, than I can count. And so we really do rely on those relationships built by volunteers and want to continue to see that grow.
Hi, my name is Sherry Urban. I'm one of the staff at the landing, and, picking back on the addiction issue, I myself have 10 years of sobriety, and thank you. And, what I loved about Dan and Holly is that, yeah, it does exist in our world, but you know what? Be careful what you judge. Every journey is different, and we do recover, and I love what Dan and Holly and Alex and everybody is that, they're people. We can, to be heard. And so many of us are in a program. And what I love about the people that are in the landing is that they're comfortable coming up to me and saying, you know what, I'm having problems today. Sherry, where's another meeting? I'm in a spiritual 12-step meeting. So, that's really important, is that, that we don't make them feel like they're nothing, because so often people can't get past the addiction. So I'm very grateful that people haven't judged me for my addiction, because I'm doing great. And others can too. So, I'm so happy that Dan and Holly have this going and to be a part of the staff. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions online?
Yeah, I've got one from Sarah, who's a single mother of 5, and she's asking, because she's got kids at home, how can she help the landing, volunteer with her children or otherwise?
Let me take that. So one of the things that we've done in the past is we have let families bring their kids in. We've sort of taken a step back on that, just due to safety issues. We've had some instances where little kids go running off, and it's just not a safe environment. So we have to be very cautious about small children coming in to try and help. I mean, we've seen some really cute things we had a rock painting thing last summer, and the kids, Emily, one of our volunteers, brought her 2 kids in, and they were painting rocks with some of our guests. And I mean, it was heartwarming. The guests loved it, but we have to be aware that there are those individuals that may not be a good, safe fit for. So to answer the question for this young lady, for Sarah, if they wanted to reach out to us and talk about maybe doing a cookie drive, or the other thing that our guests don't get often enough, a card. Have the kids make cards to bring down to the day center. And if they want to bring them and hand them out, and if mom and dad want to bring them down and keep an eye on them in just a short duration thing, that's great, because it gives the kids the opportunity to feel like they're contributing. And it really makes our guests, our friends, feel like somebody cares.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out, because it's it's a remarkable thing. We've had how many instances of little kids stop by with their families because they had a lemonade stand or they had a cookie drive, or they just have a saving system with their family where it's spend, save, and donate. And they'll come in with their $18.73. And we try to just point out, like, it's amazing. It's a beautiful thing because in that child, that spirit of care and compassion for your fellow human beings is being planted, and it's growing, and it's being supported. And it's just a remarkable thing. And so, like Dan said, that the cards, we've had just construction paper, hearts, stars, flowers, and it's a beautiful thing when you see, I've watched the guest hand these little cards to some of our, or staff hand these little cards to our guests, and just seeing their face light up. You're loved, you're valued, you're seen. I mean, these little notes so it's a beautiful thing, and you don't need to be in the day center physically to make a difference for the people that we care for. So hopefully that's a good.
I'm sorry.
Well, wait a second, before you speak, I want to introduce you. This is Teresa Swenson. Teresa is one of our community paramedics. Teresa has been with us throughout the pandemic. That's how the community paramedicine program got started. She is one of our pivotal teammates from Mail Ambulance. Alex, Andrew, Mike, the rest of them, Dr. McCoy, we love you guys. Thank you for what you do for our people, for our friends. You didn't know you were going to get put on the spot like that,
No,
did
I
you?
didn't come down here for that. I don't like being the center of attention, as outgoing as I am, and the staff are probably shocked to hear that. No, I actually came down here as a mom to a couple little kids. What I have done as another idea is shared the story of the landing and the mission. And what I have done is ask for monetary donations. Some people don't have the means or the capabilities of going out and getting items to help donate. So I did that, and I took my kids with me, and I let them help pick out items that they personally picked out to help donate as well, whether it was food or clothing or little trinkets, little things like that. Sometimes it's not necessities. Sometimes it's little mini chocolate candy bars. I mean, what we think of as treats, and everybody thinks of as treats. So I know my kids had a heyday with that, and a lot of it was time and gas money and a vehicle that could hold all of that. That was also a great resource. So just other ideas as well to help out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions at all? We're one more online.
Are there any specific ways that the community, including individuals, businesses, and the city government, can support you in the transition from your current space onto the next?
Well,
I'm gonna give you like 15 minutes here, Dan.
Well, yeah. So what was the question again? let me.
How can they?
Oh, you want to help us move?
Businesses and city government support you in that transition.
Gotcha.
From current space to the next.
Oh, that's a rabbit hole. Let me do a quick PSA here. The Landing Inn has entered into a contract to purchase a piece of property at 426 3rd Avenue Southeast. Right now, we're looking at construction, hopefully beginning sometime in the next couple of months. Sadly enough, that our lease is up at the fire station the end of April. It will not be extended. So we're going to have some conversations with our community partners. Hi, Lisa. That's what I'm coming to talk to you about tomorrow. And just see how that looks, what that looks like. Our folks at Knutson Construction, who have been diligent and been just a blessing to us. We're looking at probably an end of July timeline to get the new facility up and running. We're contemplating if we can use the front end of it for temporary while they do the back end. That's a whole nother conversation. But to answer the question, what can they do? When we get to a point where we need to move things, where we need to put things in storage, we'll need help moving things. If you have a pickup truck, if you have a box truck, if you have a good back, things like that, we'll announce those times. It's going to be, yes.
I think one thing that the community can do is kind of take what we're hearing here tonight and use it when we do start seeing the influx of people that are experiencing homelessness in the streets from May till July when we don't have that place for them to go
Right.
during the day. So maybe they can use some of this compassion and kind of take it and go forward.
Well, there's one thing I need to clarify real quick, and it's very important to know is that the Salvation Army has a day room. They have a day center that's open from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. So they do have a place to go. The problem being is evenings, weekends, and we see 50 or 60 people a day, and they're going to go right up to the Salvation Army, and it's going to spill over all over the place. It's not, we're not the only shop in town. There are other great organizations. In fact, I'm going to do a real quick shout out to everybody that's here that I know. Rudy Nall is the director of the Rochester Community Warming Center. Rudy, thank you for everything you do. Major Lisa Mueller sitting up here. Her and her husband, Major Bob, will run the Salvation Army here in town. Do a rock star job with that. Is there anybody here from Dorothy Day House? I didn't see Ryan or anybody. That's the other overnight shelter here in town. Family Promise is our partner here in town that does. Oh, Rudy's a board member of Family Promise too. That's right. They work with all the families here in town. So it's not all us. It's not all Dan and Holly. It is the team that we have in Rochester that we get to work with on a daily basis. And I'll be the first to admit I was probably a schmuck when I started doing this, and I didn't get what I didn't get. And we do have a great team in Rochester, and it's been a learning process for all of us because it's done nothing but grow. I will argue until the days is done that people say that our homeless population is reducing. It's not a correct statement. It's not. It's growing. We see it every day. We see new faces every day. Rudy told me the other day, what was it, 24 new faces in the last 2 weeks? Yeah. Their bed capacity has been full or close to capacity every night. I don't know. Lisa was on vacation, so I haven't had a chance to talk to her. So, but I'm sure that they're busy down there, and the programs that they run, I know, are probably overflowing. So, it's not going away. Yes.
So I was just wondering, I have not been around this area, so I have no idea if this building is even still standing or if they've imploded it. But is it a possibility to inquire about using the YMCA property for that interim time? Or, a portion of it for that 2 months?
I think
you already done that thinking and I'm just way behind the time.
Well, I know they have an RFP out, or put an RFP out, a request for proposals for brokers to handle the sale of it. I don't know if the city's interested in buying it. I don't know if University of Minnesota is looking at buying it. It would be well in the double-digit millions of dollars to purchase it. And if you have to go, I think that it interim. No, to answer your question, no, that has not ever been approached. It wasn't something that was a consideration. Oh, you're talking civil unrest. The police are here. You understand that.
Well,
May not be a bad idea. I may have to talk to you about it later, and I'll let you go in and take it over, and we'll just sort of okay.
I want to thank everyone for attending here tonight online. I'm going to have everyone on the panel, and I want to thank our panel for participating, but just one brief sentence about what the community can do to decrease the barriers of homelessness in Rochester.
Just like that. No warning. One sentence about decreasing the barriers. Sure. Honestly, just show up. That everyone here, everyone online has done that tonight. Continue to show up, continue to care.
Reach out and care.
To show love and compassion to those who are in homelessness.
Don't be afraid to have a conversation.
If you have privilege, use it for good.
And last but not least, treat them like you'd like to be treated, because they're no different than you or me.